Like a lot of media, horror is subjective. What doesn't faze one person can be another person's worst nightmare, so making a horror game list can be a tricky ordeal. But in a somewhat particular order, we have selected the
10 games you should play this Halloween because they will most probably scare you.
Number 10, The Evil Within 1 and 2. Directed by Resident Evil series creator Shinji Mikami, The Evil Within series is a survival horror game following Sebastian Castellanos, a detective with a troubled past. Pulled into a nightmarish world full of disfigured creatures, Sebastian must navigate this world with the use of firearms, melee weapons, stealth, and the use of traps. There is a debate about whether the Evil Within series is truly horror, as there are a lot of action set pieces, the ammo can be quite generous at times. But with scenes like the Keeper sequence in the first Evil Within, or the truly horrifying, invincible, one-shot kill Anima from Evil Within 2, no amount of firepower can really prepare you for the horrors this series throws at you. Number 9, Amnesia: Dark Descent. One of the older games from this list, Amnesia: Dark Descent has made a name for itself since its release in 2010. Exploring a dark castle and avoiding unsettling creatures should really be enough for most players, but Amnesia also throws in the sanity meter just to make things interesting. Sanity will drop when the player spends too long in dark areas, looking directly at monsters, or witnessing events some may say are not too pleasant. This in turn will cause the player to suffer visual and auditory hallucinations, as well as attracting monsters more frequently. A recent addition to the Game Pass family, check this out for an unsettling experience. Number 8, Dead Space. Let me first start by saying I bloody love the Dead Space series. The first one was a truly horrific mix of the Alien franchise, Event Horizon, and The Thing. The second one improved on everything that made the first game so memorable, giving gaming one of its best sequels ever. Even the third game, while more action-based than survival horror, was a great co-op experience for us. The series follows Isaac Clarke, a starship engineer who receives a distress call from the Ishimura, a planet-cracking ship. Once on board, however, Isaac quickly learns that he is not alone. The enemies in the game, necromorphs, are disfigured, reanimated corpses of the Ishimura crew and some of gaming's most disturbing enemies. The only way to defeat the enemies is by dismembering them, and as this is not a military operation, the only means to defend himself is the use of standard mining equipment. With a 2023 remake in development, horror fans are eagerly awaiting revisiting the cold, bloody depths of space. Number 7, Alien Isolation. Sticking with the space setting, Alien Isolation was a surprise hit. The Aliens franchise has not had a great track record when it comes to the gaming world, so when Creative Assembly's horror gem was released, we all saw exactly how good an Alien game can be. Set 15 years after the events of the first movie, the game follows Amanda Ripley, daughter of Ellen Ripley, who is investigating the disappearance of her mother. Once inside, however, she finds herself battling for her life against a xenomorph loose on the station. What makes this game truly terrifying are two major factors. One, the alien cannot be killed. While it can be attacked and thwarted off, the player must rely on stealth to avoid becoming its next victim. The second and truly impressive reason is the alien has a very advanced AI system in place, utilizing not one but two AIs. A director AI, which always tracks the player's location and points the alien in your direction, while the alien's AI is driven by sensors and behaviors to hunt you down. This is truly next level stuff when it comes to creating the perfect organism. Number 6, Visage. Or Visage? Visage? I don't know. I'll be 100% honest here. This game made it here by luck. One of a few random downloads on Game Pass, I thought I'd give it a crack one night just for something to do. Wasn't I surprised when this turned out to be one of the scariest gaming experiences of my life. Taking heavy inspiration from PT, more on that later, Visage takes place in a large strange house with some pretty unsettling history. The player must navigate this labyrinth as they uncover the stories of the past inhabitants. Utilizing a sanity meter, much like Amnesia: Dark Descent, the ghostly entities will throw all the standard haunting tropes in the book at the player. When a player's sanity drops too low, this will allow the supernatural forms to take shape and hunt the player down, resulting in an instant death. This truly is one of gaming's scariest experiences in the past decade. Number 5, PT. What would a list of scary games be without mentioning probably the most universally loved demos of all time? PT was a teaser for the upcoming Silent Hills game developed by gaming royalty Hideo Kojima, mastermind behind the Metal Gear Solid series. After stupidly firing Kojima, Konami not only cancelled the game, they also removed PT from the PlayStation Store. This in turn has caused PlayStations with PT pre-installed on them to fetch higher prices on the market. With the backstory out of the way, what makes this demo worthy of a spot on this list? A truly unsettling masterpiece of an experience, the player finds themselves in a continuous loop of the same hallway. Each new loop sees changes to the environment becoming more and more sinister with each passing. Released in 2014, it is still hotly debated today as one of gaming's biggest missteps, and we can only wonder that if the demo can be this terrifying, what the hell would the full game been like? Number 4. The Mortuary Assistant. The newest game on this list, The Mortuary Assistant, takes place in a setting I'm surprised has not been utilised before in gaming. You take on the role as Rebecca Owens, an apprentice at the Riverside Mortuary. Called in late one night to take care of some embalmings, you soon realise there is something different about the bodies they've brought in. While going about your work in surprising detail, mind you, things start to become unsettling as you progress, with a demonic entity watching you. The beauty of this game is that it doesn't rely heavily on loud jump scares. You can be working away and realise something horrific has been peering at you in your eyesight for the last 30 seconds without you even knowing. The realisation of this makes this whole experience more immersive, but more bloody terrifying as well. Number 3. Outlast. Okay, now we're getting down to the nitty gritty. Taking the role of an investigative journalist, Outlast sees the player investigate a rundown psychiatric hospital. The hospital, however, has been overrun by homicidal patients. Using combat-free gameplay, the only means the player has to survive is to run or to hide. If feeling helpless in this hostile environment was not enough, the vast majority of the hospital is unlit. Instead of using a flashlight or other means to illuminate an area, the player's only source of navigation is to view the surroundings through a camcorder screen. On top of all of this, the camcorder's batteries deplete fairly quickly, so to avoid being stranded completely in the dark with all the lunatics, you must scavenge batteries. All these layers of helplessness that Outlast plays on you make it truly horrifying. With an awesome DLC, a complete second game, and the upcoming Outlast trials, this series is fantastic for horror fanatics. Number 2. Resident Evil 7. So I may get some flack here for this for multiple reasons, but please hear me out. Firstly, I'm not saying it's the best Resident Evil game. Resident Evil 2 and 4, I believe, will always hold those titles. Secondly, a lot of people might not like seeing it this high on a list. This really comes down to my personal experience. This was the game I finally shelled out and got a VR headset for. I played a few other games to get used to it, and finally, I felt I was ready to tackle this. I was not. VR is highly immersive as it is, but when it's coupled with a AAA budget, it really maxes out your perception between game and reality. This game was a truly horrific experience for me. The Baker Mansion gives us a Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibe. The Baker family is a relentless force hunting you down. Those bloody molded things in the basement are lumbering nightmares of teeth and goo. The inclusion of all the VHS tape sections were a sadistic but awesome addition. Even though I could only play it for 30 minutes at a time, just to give my little heart a rest, this is not only one of the best horror experiences available, I'd say it's probably the best VR experience available. Before we get to the number 1 spot, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe. No pressure or anything, but it really does help the channel out. It makes us feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Number 1. Phasmophobia. This list became increasingly harder to compile, especially when it got to the top few spots. But there really is no denying the impact that Phasmophobia has had on the gaming community. Very few games have been able to make the horror co-op experience work. But Phasmophobia not only made it work, it rewrote the book on it. With practically no story, the game is based around being an amateur ghost hunter. You go into new locations, investigate using different equipment, gain evidence, identify the spectre haunting the building, and then head home for a pint. Simple, right? Well, it turns out those beyond the grave really don't like the living coming into their personal space and meddling in their affairs. These guys really mean business. With a bunch of different ghost types, locations, equipment, and no two hunts really being the same, it's a limitless source of scares. What's even more impressive is that this game is still in early access. It's not even a full release yet. With all the recent updates and additions, Phasmophobia is looking to hold on to the crown for a long time to come. So how did we do? Did we mention your favourite horror game? Is there something that should have been on the list that wasn't? Let us know in the comments below. And from everyone at Let's Die Together Gaming, thanks for watching.